Hey, Dayelle.
Hey, Amanda.
So, to me, you are perfect. And on Galentine's Day, you tell the truth. So we're going to talk about rom-coms today.
I'm excited. Can't wait. It's my favorite topic.
So that's what we're going to talk about today on Can We Talk About? Can we talk about Galentine's Day and all things our favorite rom-coms?
Yes, we can. It's maybe my favorite topic.
Yeah, well, we'll tie that with our obsession with period pieces. But you sent me over a list of your favorite, and oddly enough, I would say all of mine are on your list. So that made it real easy. I mean, I could probably add another 15 to that list, but that would be a 5-hour podcast. So
yeah, well, that's better because I legitimately could do maybe 100 more. I had to really narrow it down to movies I've recently watched again, 200th time.
Yes.
Because I have so many favorites.
Okay, that's completely fair. So again, I had to rein it in, but I was like, I'm just going to add one or two to this list because if I were to make an entirely separate list, again, this would be a 3-hour episode, which, we'll just revisit it. We'll do Galentine's Day too. Did you watch the episode of Parks and Rec where they celebrate Galentine's Day?
I did not. Tom is a big Parks and Rec, but I started watching it at the tail end of when he was watching it, so I don't know it like he would know or reference.
Okay, all right. So there's Leslie Knope, played by Amy Poehler, celebrates Galentine's Day the day before Valentine's Day, and I remember watching the episode, and then I had told my boss at the time when I was working about it, and she was like, oh, let's celebrate it. And then it just became a thing that's, to me, so much more fun than Valentine's Day. Again, probably because I've been in the same relationship for a century and a half, but yeah. I loved it. I just thought it was so cute. And this is such a cute way to celebrate it. And
agreed.
Again, I could probably talk about 100 million, 5 billion. And this might be a pointed question, but do you think that rom-coms aren't as good as they used to be? I feel like they've just kind of died off.
100%. In fact, recently I was really wanting to just sit down with a good snack and watch a rom-com, and I went looking and I looked for hours trying to find, well, maybe not hours, but I looked for a really long time and could not find, I started watching a couple and turned them off and then just went back to my go-to rom-coms because it was almost painful to watch some of them because they were so bad.
I always end up back where I started. I scroll. I'm like, I'm going to watch a new one. I'm going to watch a new one. It's like, oh, and we're back. Best Friend's Wedding. And we're back. Holiday.
Exactly. And I think a lot of new rom-coms, they just copy the plot of the classics and try to make it a new version of it. And they're just not. They're not good. They're it's a bad knockoff. And it's just why would I watch this when I could just go watch Clueless? Why would I watch this?
There's a time and a place, right? I feel like they've come up with good rom-com-y type shows, that mother-daughter vibe, Virgin River I really like. These things that are just more, they're shows, but they're not movies. And sometimes I just want to digest it in one sitting. Yes, and exactly. I do the same thing. I just end up back where we started. So let's go back where we started.
It's kind of we talked about Gilmore Girls the last time I was on the podcast, but it's that warm and fuzzy feeling you get. And it's like an old best friend. You can just put it on and it just
it's a warm
the soul.
I mean, obviously everyone listening can already realize why we don't have Tom on for this episode. Because I don't know if it would be the same conversation as we're about to have.
No, definitely not. Although some of
he does seem to enjoy.
He does, and he introduced me to 2 rom-coms. They're not on the list. Oh wait, one is on the list, but one of them is not on the list. And I had never seen it, and he had me watch it, and I loved it. So
okay.
There is that.
Yeah, he's very good at appreciating actors and directors. So I feel like you would be very appreciative of them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But let's start with the first one, My Best Friend's Wedding from 1997, which I can't believe it's from 1997. I feel so old.
It's funny. I remember I was probably too young to see the movie when I saw it because there was a lot of stuff that happened that I was like, what's going on? I don't understand what's happening in this movie. But I loved rom-coms, and I would watch a lot with my mom, actually. And we did like You've Got Mail, Sleepless in Seattle, all those like really just great,
incredible ones. Yeah.
And My Best Friend's Wedding was, this is kind of crazy, but probably the first time I had ever watched on TV someone that was gay. Like I had no exposure to that. So it was kind of like wait, why is he not into her? I don't understand. And because I was so young that I hadn't, growing up in a very small town, we weren't exposed to anything. And so I realized, like, I love this. I want a best friend like that.
Yeah.
It's funny, like, looking back at it now, like, oh, okay, that makes total sense. But when I was a kid, I was like, I don't understand the relationship. Like, why is he?
Sure.
So anyway, but it's just,
I feel like there's so much nostalgia with this movie for me. And like, again, I love my fun facts every time we do an episode. And I was looking stuff up for this. Julia Roberts, and everyone, you will see that the overarching theme of this is the love for Julia Roberts. Mm-hmm. But she was like the rom-com queen in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. She handpicked Cameron Diaz and Dylan Mulroney for the roles.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, Drew Barrymore read for Cameron Diaz's role, and Sarah Jessica Parker was like, no, I want Cameron Diaz. And oddly enough, Sarah Jessica Parker read for Julia Roberts' role, which would have been such a different movie, right?
It would not have been the same.
And Sarah Jessica Parker was doing fine with Sex and the City. She was okay. She didn't. Yeah,
she fits that. She fits that well, and she does that well. I think because Julia Roberts just plays, I mean, she's literally the classic rom-com girl. It was like her and Meg Ryan were like the two. It's like the blonde or the brunette. I just loved every Julia Roberts rom-com. Loved him.
I mean, I think we all did. And that could totally lead us into our next one, which is Notting Hill, which the way that Notting Hill made me feel as like a young tween or whatever they call that age when you're like 11 to whatever, it was to me the epitome of romance, which again, probably way too young to be thinking that.
Yeah.
But
it was so dreamy. Movie. It was like the perfect, it's like this movie star meets this sweet travel bookstore owner. And like immediately there's a connection. And like, you're like, oh, they're never going to end up together because she's like this, big time actress.
Huge
and he's just this
star.
Sweet guy, family man. And it's so good.
I loved it. It was so good.
Yeah, it's so good. And one of my favorite characters, which I forgot about him a little bit, and then I recently rewatched it, is Spike.
He's so weird. I love him.
He's fantastic. And he like adds so much to the movie that like there's just all these little tiny things that he just throws in there. He's hilarious. He's absolutely hilarious. And it was kind of like for the story, because it's kind of like a really like sad at times story, and just like you feel so bad for Hugh Grant's character in certain moments, and then Spike just like pops up and like
it makes you laugh.
Yeah. Exactly.
I feel like this was like not the beginning, but like this was like a really big Hugh Grant moment, and I remember being so sad when I remember hearing this about he like made fun of Julia Roberts' mouth and how big it was kissing her. And he was like, every time I kissed her, I could hear an echo that her mouth was so big. And like they've squashed the beef since then. But I remember being like, no, they're really in love with each other. No, they're so in love.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with rom-coms. I think, like, obviously these are really good actors and actresses playing a role, but like in our everyday lives, when we watch these, like we truly believe that these people are like this in love. Like this is a real story. This really
in my
happened.
brain, absolutely, every time.
Yeah,
every time.
I think that's why we like them so much, because we're just like, this could really happen. This is how life works.
Same thing with My Best Friend's Wedding and Notting Hill. They've just stood the test of time. Yes, of course. Yes. They both have so much problematic crap in them that was accepted then. It is what it is. But I can turn them on and just feel completely at peace and relaxed and like, just like, it's just like that
good.
moment. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, like when the movie credits are rolling, I'm literally sitting there like with tears. Like, oh my gosh, it was so good.
I miss them so much.
I miss them.
Julia Roberts, apparently in an interview for this, she got super pissed saying that she hated Rita Hayworth's famous line where, they go to bed with Gilda, they wake up with me. And she's like, I really didn't want to piss off, Richard, who wrote the script. But she's like, but that was nails on a chalkboard. Like, I didn't want to be like just the men go to bed with me at night in their brains. They wake up with me on their brain. She's like, I felt gross and dirty. And I feel like Julia Roberts was probably one of the first female actors in this situation to like speak up about any kind of thing that made her uncomfortable, probably because she had the power to do it at this point. But she didn't want every character she played to just be the dumb woman who fell in love no matter how problematic the situation was. And that really pissed off Hugh Grant, apparently. And that she was saying that. And he was like, you look good, just shut up and, like, do your thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like Hugh Grant I know he struggled with some addiction issues, right? Like in the 90s. And
Mm-hmm.
So I know that he kind of flew off at the mouth a lot, but he's in a lot of, on our list here, he's in a lot of them. And
he is. And I think too, like I had heard a couple times, like reading gossipy things or whatever, that he was not the most pleasant person to work with, that he had a very short temper. And like a lot of co-stars had like voiced different obstacles when working with him. And it's always interesting, like when you have the leading man, you envision the character, the person we're seeing on screen is what we're thinking the actual person is like. And then when you hear these actual stories, and like, of course, you don't really know how much is true, how much is not. But when you hear the same stories over and over again, you can kind of like pick it apart and figure out like, he's probably an asshole.
Yeah.
He has earned the right, or he thinks he has. So he just treats people the way he wants to treat people and he doesn't care. And I think like, you have this perfect, and actually there are some movies that I can't watch anymore because I've heard so many terrible stories about the people that are in them. And
I was literally just going to say that.
Yeah, it changes the way you see the characters because you're like, it's not believable anymore. Like, I can't see past the fact that this guy is a total creep.
But I feel like Hugh Grant kind of like had his like come to Jesus moment in the world, and like he got in when all that stuff happened with, didn't he get caught with a sex worker and like all this crazy stuff came out and it kind of his life imploded.
A huge scandal. I remember that.
He came back to Earth, and like everyone says now, the Hugh Grant has really made amends with all the people he pissed off in the past. So maybe I'm making this up in my brain to make me continue to love him in all of these movies. And I'm going with it.
I'm just going to stick with that. It's good. I can still watch all those movies, so I'll stick with that as well. I'm good with that.
Me too.
Yeah, it's funny. Like on the topic of people in movies that you don't realize like their actual internal struggles with playing characters. Julia Roberts, in an interview with like Vogue or one of those bigger magazines, she talked about how she does not feel comfortable in a lot of scenes where she has to show her body, and that she would go to the writers and tell them to change things so that she wouldn't have to be seen naked. Wow. And she had like people that would stand in for her, like from like, if you see like a butt shot or something, you never actually see her. It's not her, because she did not feel comfortable.
She wasn't comfortable, and she's still
this
the
beautiful woman. Exactly.
Yeah.
And to like hear that, it just like humanized her so much. And I think that's also why I love her so much in pretty much anything she's in. I just like her as an actress. But like the fact that she is this beautiful woman still has those internal, what everybody feels. And in a man's world, like, can you imagine like telling people that you don't want to, do this scene, or you're not going to take your clothes off, and you're the it girl. So like you can speak up. And she's been like very active in like speaking up for, and just her niece too. She's also very vocal about all of that, which I think is awesome, because she's probably one of the first actresses to speak up about that stuff. And even in Notting Hill, there's that scene where they go to dinner. Her and Hugh Grant go out to dinner, and there's a group of guys sitting at like a table over to the side, and they are talking about Anna Scott is her character's name.
Yeah.
That she was just in a new movie, and they were like picking apart her role in the new movie and just like really just demeaning her and talking about her body and how like, even though she's a terrible actress, like I would totally sleep with her. And then talking about another actress and like comparing the body and comparing different things. Like this is happening in the movie. And Hugh Grant's character gets up and goes over to the table and is, you know, like, how can you sit there and talk about someone you've never even met, much less like picking apart this woman who's like a strong, intelligent person, and you're like talking about her like she's a piece of meat. And then the guys are just kind of like, yeah, whatever. Because he's just like this nerdy guy that comes over. And they don't know that he's literally sitting and having dinner with the Anna Scott. So he, you know, walks away. And the guys continue to like just chuckle and like make comments. And she is like leaving the restaurant with Hugh Grant. And she stops and she turns around and she goes over to the table and just like gives him a piece. And that's it. And like, it's just interesting to see, like, even then, like, clearly, like, it kind of shows who she is as the character, too. Like, she is this very strong person, but I think she's so, like, you know, with the public eye and everything that's happening, she kind of, like, shelters away from her true self. But in those moments, she really, like, speaks her mind, which I loved. I love that part of it.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate to who she is, not just the character, which is great.
Exactly. So
that's
anyway, so moving on to the next.
Oh, I love that you had 13 going on 30 on there for so many reasons. It's just so fun. And it's like, I think more like a silly rom-com, right? Like it's just silly in the best way possible.
Honestly, I went back and forth because I was like, I don't even know if I would consider it a rom-com.
It's like coming of age more, but also rom-com. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure what year it came out, but I'm pretty sure
2004.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say, I'm pretty sure I was pretty young when it came out. And I remember going and seeing it in the movie theaters with my friends. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest movie ever. I can't wait to be 30. And then
oh God, I know. I rewatched it. It was like probably October-ish. And I remember thinking like 30 then felt so old. So 2004, I was a junior in high school.
So old. 30
felt a century away. It felt like I'll never get there. Am I going to make it to 30? Probably not. I'm probably not going to make it to 30. And what I thought I'd be doing at 30? No. Just no. And I like Mark Ruffalo in this movie is so cute. Like, I think that made him like a little heartthrob to the girls of that age. And he's just a very nice person, having where I live and where your parents live. He lives very close to us, and he does a lot for the small town. And so we've seen that side of him. But I love the story that he almost turned down the role because he didn't want to do the Thriller dance because he was so uncomfortable dancing in front of people. It's so cute.
It's so sweet. He's definitely one of those guys, too, that you wouldn't pick to be the love interest in a movie because he is kind of like one of the standard, like, tall, dark, and handsome.
But he made it hot. He made himself with heartthrob. Yeah.
Exactly.
Agreed.
He made kind of nerdy guys the heartthrobs. Like he paved that road.
100%. And I also feel like 13 going on 30, growing up, we probably both grew up on the very same books, Babysitter's Club, like Boxcar Children, like those were the books of our childhood. And then like Goosebumps got introduced, and then like all these like body switching where you'd like switch with your, you know, teacher for your day, or like all these like body switching things came about when we were in like middle schoolish time. It became very like that version of sci-fi was very popular.
And like Freaky Friday.
Freaky Friday. Oh my God. Oh, I love those movies so much.
Lindsay Lohan classic.
Lindsay Lohan, Jamie Lee Curtis. But I feel like 13 going on 30 was like my adult version of that. Not adult, but like late teen version of that, where it felt cool. So I wasn't rereading my Goosebumps books.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm glad you picked it. And Ariana Grande in an interview in 2018 said that she watched the movie every single night every
That's
night.
So funny.
Like she went to sleep.
It's a very upbeat,
Yeah.
feel good, warm and fuzzy movie. It's like a sleepover, you know, with
Absolutely.
your
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good sleepover one. Which leads me into my favorite sleepover movie ever, and I'm sure you will agree. Clueless from 1995. Oh my gosh. If you haven't seen Clueless and you're listening to this podcast, get out of here.
Paul Rudd.
My notes literally say, I don't care if he's my stepbrother. I'm sleeping with Paul Rudd every time. That is literally what my notes say right now. Oh,
He's
God.
so
He
beautiful.
cemented that. This is going to end up being a very horny podcast. That was not the...
I
that
mean,
was not
really,
the go,
that's
but
what this
rom-coms,
is.
baby.
This is what this is. Exactly.
And I love that, first of all, that's from 95. Does not feel
Is
like
it
1995
really?
to me. Yes. That is nuts.
Wow.
And I remember I had seen Alicia Silverstone in the Aerosmith video. I'm very much the product of two people who had a child very young and loved 80s hairband metal. And she's in the Crazy video, the Aerosmith Crazy video. And she's like the hot girl.
Did you ever hear about, there's like an interview with her talking about that music video? That's like maybe another topic, but
okay.
It was
dark. Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's what got her this role because they loved her. Yeah, they loved her in that video and they're like, we have to have her. So I'm really sorry that that happened to her, but
I couldn't picture anyone else playing that character.
Not a chance.
At all. No. In fact, recently she was just in, I don't know what it's for, but there's a commercial that I just saw.
I just saw it. Yes.
Yeah.
And she's like,
I don't know what
it's.
it's for. Yeah.
I don't either. It's so good though. She looks great.
It is. Yeah, she does. She doesn't look like she changed at all. She looks like she's the same person from that movie, like
she got to
age-wise.
keep the whole wardrobe.
Which is wild.
Thing.
Yeah.
She said she donated a lot of it and like gave it away, but come on. Okay, this will blow your mind. I walked into Target like a couple months ago and the full Cher getup is like for sale in Target. And I was like,
yeah, it makes me feel
it's
old.
happening. It's happening.
Yeah. It's coming back. I mean, I used to listen to my mom constantly say, don't get rid of it because it's going to come back in style. And I'm like, no, I'm never going to wear my flare jeans again. They're so not cool. And now literally everything is coming back. Like stuff that I definitely just shoved into my closet and thought like, nope, this is not ever going to be a thing, but I love it. So I'll hold on to it. Put it back. It's back.
And I know, but I feel like
and now it's
created
vintage.
Oh God, but it created such like a, for me, the Clueless thing, I will never forget this. You could see like in elementary school. So 95, I was probably 4th grade. I had friends who had much older sisters, right? So Clueless created the style of the mid 90s, like single-handedly, that was the style. You could tell who had older sisters because they would borrow their clothes and be like the trendiest damn 4th and 5th grader you've ever seen in your life.
Yep.
And I just remember being like, oh man, my mom will never buy me that. We still shop at Kids R Us on layaway.
Yeah.
Kmart on layaway.
I was going to say Kmart.
I mean, I did get a pair of Jenko jeans in 5th grade and thought I was the coolest child that's ever lived. But
yeah,
that was not well, kind of Clueless style, but more like Ty like the skater boy style.
Yeah. And also like Dayelle, she like for sure wore some really crazy, like crazier than Cher. Like for sure was the trendsetter.
Did
Even
you want
more
a Jeep
so
Wrangler
than Cher.
So bad?
Oh, 100%.
More than anything in the world, I wanted a Jeep Wrangler. Like, more than anything.
In that color.
100%. And to this day, I think, because I have my dad, my stepdad, and my brother-in-law, all mechanics, if I bought a Jeep Wrangler, they'd be like, you're an idiot. Yeah. You're not fixing that thing. It's a pain in the ass. But still to this day, sometimes when I see a girl driving a Jeep Wrangler, I'm like, get your Cher moment, girl. Yeah. You don't know how good you got it.
So good. It's so good. I love it.
And I guess, do you feel weird thinking about how they were stepbrother and sister? Like,
so
that's so gray to me.
I think the part that I was a little bit like, as I got older, when I watched it again from like a mom's point of view, because like a lot of times when I'm watching stuff, I'll think like, oh, Wes would love this. And I'm like, I don't know if he's ready to watch this. Yeah. And I remember being like, how old are they? Like she's in high school and he's out of high school, in college. But like
I'm finishing college too, right?
And she got her learner's permit because she turned. Do you remember how old she turned in the movie?
I mean, like, I'm just saying 16 because I'm...
Yeah. And then Josh has a birthday in the movie too.
Oh my God. I'm going to look this up because it's going to make it creepy and ruin it for me.
I'm pretty sure he's like 18, 19 maybe.
Okay, so we're in illegal territory. Oh my God. So like when... Oh my God.
Oh no.
Sharon and her pals were 15 and 16 years of age. And Josh was on break from college saying that he was probably in like the 18 to 19 age. Okay, that's problematic.
Yeah. So when you think of it in that way, you're like, the step thing, that's not a problem. This?
Oh, man.
Creepy.
Yeah.
And the fact that the dad was totally fine with it. Like, as strict as he was.
This shit is dark. Okay. Well,
you know,
already?
Like, yeah, the step thing didn't bother me because, like, obviously they were never the same
household. Like, they barely knew each other. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like, and I think, like, they were divorced before. Weren't they divorced before? I don't know how that story.
Either way, that's
we don't
not even the worst part. So, I will say to wrap this up, one of my favorite lines in the perfect accent is, "You're a virgin who can't drive." And my sisters and I used to say that to me all the time because we were, in fact, virgins who could not drive.
Yeah. That's amazing. There's so many lines.
Oh, God, it's such a quotable movie.
Yeah. Yes. We could do a whole episode on that.
Next on my list is like my favorite movie of all time in the history of ever, Love Actually. Like, when I say that this is just, I don't even know how to describe it. And the wonderful part is every holiday season I have to watch it. Like, I've already watched it 5 times throughout the year, but I have to. I've now gotten Henry to sit and watch it, and he's like, "Oh, we've got to watch Love Actually. It's Christmas time." And I just,
like tradition.
I love it. And a romantic story. It's so romantic. I think I've told this on the podcast before, but it fits because we're talking about it. For those of you that don't know, I am engaged to Dayelle's cousin. And I met him at a bar in Middletown. And I told him that all I wanted was a guy to do that scene, the "To Me, You Are Perfect" scene. And that's all I wanted. And I would marry that man. And he very romantically said, "If I get this dart in the bullseye, you have to give me your phone number." He got the dart in the bullseye. I gave him my phone number. Fast forward to many years later, we are finally dating, and he at the time lived in Florida and I lived in New York, and it was our first Christmas together dating, and he sent roses to my job with a bunch of cards, and each set of roses had the different card from the movie.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's really good,
I didn't know that.
It's
That's
really good.
So sweet. I mean, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it was a deal sealer.
That's amazing.
And now he's stuck.
Well, you know what's crazy is I had never seen Love Actually until Tom.
Good man, Tom.
He bought me the movie on DVD because it was one of his favorites, and I had never seen it.
Shut up.
And
okay, and now you're
history.
like me. Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Listen, my Harry Potter world really crosses over into the Love Actually world. There's some crossover characters there and some good drama.
Yeah.
But I will say
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Professor Trelawney and Mrs. Severus Snape.
That's so
all in the movie. But also,
I didn't even think about it.
Did that story break your heart, that storyline? So essentially, if you haven't seen Love Actually, it's a bunch of different love stories around Christmas time that lead up to one situation where everyone's worlds are kind of intertwined. And that story really broke my heart, where she finds that Joni Mitchell CD and her husband is cheating on her, and she thinks she's going to get this necklace, and she finds it in his pocket, and then she unwraps the gift, and it's a Joni Mitchell CD, realizing that he's giving this necklace to someone else. Oh my God, I can feel that hurt. Every time I watch that scene, my heart just shatters.
It's a gut punch for sure. And the music that's playing too, I think really,
God, so
like it makes it so much more impactful, I think, because you're just like, you feel for her so much. And then for her to like get up and still go to the little kid's concert, it breaks your heart.
I know. And so her brother is actually the prime minister, played by Hugh Grant. And I love that storyline. And one thing I will say, I mean, Hugh Grant, the person, probably not, but Hugh Grant, the actor in the movie, this character, the woman that he falls in love with is just like someone that works in their, I don't know what the heck you call it, their prime minister house.
She's like, yeah.
And everyone
like
calls her
secretary
fat.
Or something.
Yeah, like fat and chubby, and like she's a beautiful size 8 woman, like gorgeous.
Yeah, exactly. She's teeny.
And she's like so beautiful. And the whole point is like, everyone's like, oh, the fat one? Oh, the one with big calves? And he's like, Hugh Grant doesn't understand. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, there's nothing fat about this woman. Like, and someone says like, she's the one with the large calves. Yeah. I do love that, because I think that was one of the first time in movies, especially a romantic comedy, where they took like a normal sized woman, even smaller than the normal sized woman, and just showed how ridiculous it was. And I also feel like, because this is predominantly a British movie, that was a very American thing for us to just have stick figure ladies in our rom-coms.
Exactly. And isn't it the president that comes in and he's such a...
Billy Bob Thornton. He's a fucking douchebag.
But he's supposed to be the president, and he's such a sleazeball.
He's just...
And like the entitlement...
What a perfect example.
Yes. Yes.
The American culture just coming in.
Exactly. Like it was just disgusting. And you just like hate him so much. And like, and you feel so bad for her, because you're just like, gross.
So that's a perfect way to say it. Just gross.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite? I mean, I do love the Hugh Grant dancing in the stairway scene. I do love that scene. But do you have a favorite scene from the movie?
Honestly, my favorite love story in that group of love stories is the Colin Firth.
Oh my God, it's the best one.
Like,
Agreed.
And I think because it has such a like romantic novel type, like, I mean, obviously he's a novelist, but like just that, like the fact that she doesn't speak the same language as him, and he like learns like how to communicate with her, and like it's just such a sweet and tender, like, I'm pretty sure, did his wife left him for like his best friend or something, like in the very beginning
his heartbreak
of the movie.
is so dark.
He like walks in on his wife with is it his best friend or his brother? It's like someone very close to him.
I should know this. I've seen the movie so many times.
Such a devastating. Yeah, and like she's supposedly like homesick, and he comes home and like wants to take care of her, and then obviously there's a guy in his bed, and so like that, and then all that stuff, and then my second, I always just felt like it was just so sweet, is Liam Neeson, his character with the son,
Sam, his stepson.
Like it's such a sweet story, like how he just talks to him about love. He's mourning the loss of his wife, this little boy's mother. I think my favorite part about this movie, and like, again, I could do, maybe we should do a whole episode on just this movie around Christmas time, because it is, I agree,
to me, such a beautiful exploration of all the different types of love, like unrequited love, young love, love between a manager and his rock star, which, by the way, such a fucking funny little juxtaposition, the washed up rock star and his fat old manager, and just, oh God, it's so good. Great. And, like there's so many different types of love, but to me, that was just the most wholesome. You are so sad. The love of your life, your wife just died, and you are now raising her son, your stepson.
Yeah.
And he's in love. And instead of being like, how could you be so caught up about this little girl? Your mother just died. He's like, no matter what happens, Sam, always chase love. And like, oh God, the airport scene.
What's adorable too is the fact that it, like, you think it's the teacher that he has, like the little boy, and you're like, oh no. Whoops, let's back it up a little bit. I also was just thinking about it, is the very beginning of Love Actually, when they're talking about how like at the airport you don't see people who are angry and like you see just love. Like everybody is just so and I loved that, like, you know, how it just like, you know, obviously goes into all the stories and stuff, but it's such a feel good.
Really feel good. And the Laura Linney storyline.
Yeah.
With her brother who's oh God. That storyline too was just so, I always felt that like it was my job to take care of my family. And I always remember thinking like, is this going to be me? Am I not going to like be able to be in a relationship because I'm going to feel like I'm guilty for not taking care of the people that need it? And no, that never happened. But I just remember romanticizing that, like, oh God, they love each other so much and he's so nice. And she's just so in love with him.
Yeah. And I think like with exactly that, I think what this movie does really well, and like obviously this is hats off to the writers, is it's real. Like these stories feel very like real, and the emotions that the actors feel throughout each of the stories are real. It's like what you would actually go through and the process, and like every different way how like love is also very painful. And so I like the fact that it doesn't just,
I do too. That's a great point.
It doesn't just go to the happy, happy, happy love part. It's real. It's
there's so much
love
pain.
Hurts. Exactly. And I think, but in the end, like the beauty that comes from that love, no matter how painful it might be, it's still love. And like to be loved and to love is just like fuzzy.
So fuzzy. And I remember watching it too. And like, it wasn't just romantic love like we talked about, but that scene where Emma Thompson finds out their husband's cheating on her, but she has to be a mom. And like, this is her kid's big night for their big Christmas pageant. And instead of locking herself in the room and not going to her kid's pageant, she just loves her kid so much, wants them to have the best night. It's Christmas Eve. There's a scene where she just like wipes her tears away, and she like, you could see her just like shake it off and be like, okay, my darlings, let's go. Let's go. And just like the love a mother has for her children, and how like she never puts herself first, and it's always kids first. I just remember thinking like, oh God, heartbreaking and beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
On the comedy side of this, it's not really like a big scene, but when I was looking up the fun facts for this, January Jones plays like the super hot cowgirl in Wisconsin, and this character comes over to the US to find hot women and just he thinks he's going to come to the US and just have sex all the time, and he just happens to stumble.
He's a great character.
He's
I love
so funny. He just like stumbles into this bar and in Wisconsin in the middle of winter and finds these 3 insanely hot girls, and they're like, you can come with us, and we don't have heat, so we're gonna have to all sleep really close.
And sleep in the same
apparently
bed.
January Jones, she improv'd that whole scene, and the other girls did too. The boy character's like, you can truly see him reacting to like the innuendos they're throwing. Is so weird. It's so cute.
Funny.
Yeah, that's really good.
I didn't know that. That's awesome. He's a great character.
He's so good.
On another note of another story, I always was, from the time I first saw the movie, I would get really upset with the story with Keira Knightley, because I felt like she was just like betraying her husband's trust.
That's a very, first of all, Keira Knightley was 18 epic. In that movie. She was 18. What a baby.
And like the scene is epic. When, I don't know, the Mark guy plays Mark. I don't know his actual name.
Rick Grimes, you mean? From The Walking Dead?
No. Yes.
He's Rick Grimes.
Oh my gosh. I don't think I realized. Wow. Yeah, that's so Rick Grimes in that movie. Oh, that's wild. Okay. I could not imagine being someone's best friend and having feelings for their wife, and like, isn't it the day or the night of their from the I don't know.
It's real like close to the wedding because they're watching the wedding video.
Yeah, and like go to the house and admit that you're in love with them, and like
also bad that I romanticize that. Looking back on that now, it's like, ooh,
I think
adultery.
And I think like obviously nothing ever comes of it, but it's still just like he kind of put her in a really crappy position.
Agreed. Yeah.
And then just like, you know, the whole rest of the movie, it's just kind of like, oh, are they gonna? Nope. Okay.
I know.
No. Okay.
I ignore it because it's one of my favorite Christmas movies.
Yes.
It shows you the good aspects of love, the bad aspects of love, the don't do this aspects of love.
Exactly. I think that's why I feel like it's so real, because it covers literally all the different things that happen when you're in love or when you love someone or what. It's legitimately, it completely encompasses all of that. And I think that's
a good point.
Why it's such a good movie.
I know. It just will.
Touches everybody.
So when you rewatch it, you're like, oh.
Cringy. That's a little cringy.
You're like, cringy.
Not so good.
I think we should probably talk about The Holiday next, because that's another Christmas movie. 2006. Another movie I have to watch every Christmas. I don't know if you feel the same way.
So good. Yes. I saw that movie in movie theaters.
You did. I'm very jealous.
Immediately fell in love with the movie. And I think anyone that saw it probably immediately wanted to go and find someone who lived in England and swap houses with them.
Yes. And that website was real.
Yes.
There was a real website that they used. And apparently after the movie came out, it was so popular that like the British government had to put, they had to put like a thing out saying like, be careful, because people, that you swap homes with, they could like murder you. Because this is not that. Yeah, it was like a big deal. I mean, that whole storyline itself is romantic. Take out that they find men, just what romanticism to be able to swap lives with someone completely different than you are at like an awful time in your life. But I love that Nancy Meyers, that directed the film, wrote the roles for Kate Winslet, Cameron Diaz, Jack Black, and Jude Law. Like she wrote it for them. She was like, I'll make this movie. If you four do this, I'll write it. And they were like on board. But a poor little Jack Black was so worried. He was like, I'm not the hot guy. I'm not the hot guy. Like, but people aren't going to buy it. But he is.
He's so good. He's so good. His character, you're like, immediately you love him. From the moment he's introduced, you love him. And just like what he goes through just breaks you. You're just kind of like, how can anyone be so cruel to such a sweet, caring guy?
I know. And I will say, like, their whole characters and their love stories that they end up with, like, Kate Winslet and Jack Black and Jude Law and Cameron Diaz. I love that whole story. But for me, the star of the show is Arthur, who was 90 years old when they filmed this movie.
Was he really?
Yeah, he was 90 years old. And apparently he had so much energy that sometimes the director was like, you have to act 90. You have to act like an old man. You're acting like a 60-year-old man. I didn't know this until like a couple months ago. Around Christmas time, I saw a TikTok or something. Like Dustin Hoffman has a cameo in a movie store?
Yeah.
That was because
he did. He
was not supposed to.
Yes.
He was just like,
he was like on set or something.
He was having lunch near where they were filming, and they were like, hey, do you want to just come in? Because he stopped by, he saw a lot of cameras. He's like, oh, what are you guys filming? And they're like, do you want to have a cameo? And he was like, yeah, sure.
That's amazing.
He's in like a hoodie. There's no costume design. He's literally wearing what he was wearing at lunch.
He's wearing what he came.
Yeah,
I did see that. You know what's
that.
funny is I saw an interview with Nancy Meyers kind of recently, and she was talking about how so many people push constantly for her to do sequels to her movies. And she was like very much like, no, the story is the story. And like the whole point of how she writes is so that you as the viewer can think about like where they would be today or what relationship they would be in or whatever. But that's why she writes it the way she does, and that she won't do a sequel because it would ruin what people have already come up with in their heads. And like, she loves that about the movies. And I was like, wow, that's such a, I appreciate that
beautiful.
Because exactly. And I think sometimes when sequels come out, you're expecting certain things and then you're so disappointed when it's not what you've envisioned, and it just changes how you feel about it. And I thought that was really great because, like if she was just in it for the money, 100% she'd do sequels. But the fact that she's like, no, like I'm telling a story and this is the story and this is where it ends. And it's up to you.
Love that.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, that's so, and it's funny because I think the person, I forget who was interviewing her, but they had asked her like, but don't you want to continue writing about these characters. And she's like, no, when I finish a story, like that's the end. And then like I, read another one. So
and I'm sure her head, I mean, like us, like when I leave a movie theater, not only am I digesting, or like when I watch a movie in my brain, the story's still going. I'm still continuing on in my brain. But that's what fan fiction's for, right? I'm sure there's a beautifully written novel, part 2 of The Holiday. And I think Julia Roberts actually said that she wouldn't do movies that had sequels to them when she was doing rom-coms. She's like, I want it to be a 1-part, do whatever you want at the end in your brain, but like I don't want to continue to do sequels. I'm sure there's great sequels out there, but I feel like sometimes they get muddy. They're just not the same.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what's wrong with rom-coms of today is that there are so many sequels, and like
I agree.
It changes the way you think about the first movie. And then I've also seen, some movies where like I actually enjoy the second one more than the first one. And then it's like I think there's a difference when it's a book that has already been written and that book has sequels, compared to a movie that was written and everything is encompassed in that movie for you to then write more just to make people happy in a sequel. I think that's where it gets wonky. I think people have certain ideas about what they want to see in a sequel, and when it doesn't come out exactly the way they want it, it loses its sparkle.
The sparkle and the luster. I agree. And I just realized when we were just talking about Julia Roberts, that was on your list that we didn't talk about was Runaway Bride. That's like one of my all-time favorites. And that's my fault because I was steering the train.
I just always think of the sneakers. So she's putting on the
cover where she's like tying the sneakers in the wedding dress. Oh, I love it. Yes. That's another movie. Oh, I truly love that movie.
It's there's so many moments that, and that's actually one movie that I haven't watched it in a long time. And when I was thinking about rom-coms, I was like, it was one of my absolute favorite rom-coms. I remember watching it all the time and loving.
Runaway Bride came out in 1999, and it's Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. And they had done Pretty Woman in 1990, which would be on this list, but maybe not so comedy. It's more a drama.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a rom-com. Like I do love Pretty Woman, but I also feel like that's a standalone episode.
Yeah.
That's
and I also, it's funny you bring that up because there was an interview with Julia Roberts. She was being interviewed by a celebrity, and I forget who the celebrity was, but they basically asked her, like, apparently that movie was written very different. It was very much just about prostitution and like the very, very nitty, dark world of prostitution. And they like brought it to Julia Roberts, and she was very young. This was like one of her first big movies.
Yeah, that was 1990.
And she said, no, I'm not going to do it. And then someone else it was called something else too. It wasn't called Pretty Woman at the time. Another writer took it and changed it completely, brought it back to Julia Roberts, and she was like, yes, I'll do this. And what was interesting is the person who was interviewing her, I wish I could remember who it was like, well, wouldn't you have still done it if it was the other? And she's like, no, I wouldn't have done it. And I guess there were moments in that movie that she straight up told the writers that she would not do certain things. And it's fascinating because like when you see the movie, you don't think about all that stuff. And then I guess there were a couple scenes that were not written, like they basically improv'd it. Like when he snaps the jewelry box.
Oh, yeah.
That was real. Like that wasn't a planned thing. Like it happened.
Oh, that reaction is so iconic too.
Well, because it's real. And I think like stuff like that, you're just like, that's so sweet. And like,
I know.
And yeah, so there was just like a lot of stuff with that movie that I was like, wow, that's so crazy. When you see a movie, you don't think about the process it goes through to be made. And the fact that it was a completely different movie prior to it becoming Pretty Woman, and how dark it was to what it became. And that's what she was. The girl who was interviewing her was like, if the original script ever came back on your table, like to do that movie, would you do it? And she's like, absolutely not. Like I would never. I would never do a movie like that.
Ugh,
and I was like, that's amazing. Like, and especially at that point in her career, like, it's not like she had a ton of stuff under her plate, and to be so like, no, I'm not selling my body.
Like, of the top few, like, highest grossing rom-coms or romantic movies, Pretty Woman's number 3 at 178 million. Number 1's What Women Want with 182 million, which that was from 2000. That one is a really good movie. I did love that one a lot. That's with Helen Hunt and Mel Gibson. Yeah. And like, that's more, I don't know. I liked that movie, but it was like a movie that when I watched it, I was like, oh, this is something my mom would like. Now when I've watched it, I really like it, but it didn't hit me that same way. Hitch is number 2.
They redid that movie too not that long ago to What Women Want, and it was so bad. I didn't watch it, but I heard it was horrible.
That's a hard pass for me.
And then Hitch, I don't know if I've ever seen Hitch.
That's with Will Smith.
It's Will Smith.
Yeah, and that's a really good movie. It wouldn't be in my top.
Oh, he's like he like
matchmaker
sets
guy.
up dates and stuff. Okay, yeah. I have seen it, but a long time ago.
And then Pretty Woman, and then number 4 is There's Something About Mary, which is so funny. To me, that was a comedy, not so much a rom comedy, but I guess it is.
When did that come out?
That came out in 98.
Okay. I was going to say, I definitely have seen it, but I maybe saw it one time and it wasn't that memorable because I don't remember what it was about.
So my addition to this, because the same way I love Julia Roberts, I also love Sandra Bullock. And I really not newer because it's not that new, but I feel like this is the end of the really good rom-com era. In 2009, The Proposal. I freaking love that movie. That's the one with Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
And Betty White is the grandma. That is like, I love that movie. And the mom from Step Brothers is in there. And just that to me, back when, people had cable, I don't have cable anymore, but back when I had cable, if that was on like a Saturday afternoon, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to watch A Proposal. It's got like those Forrest Gump vibes. Like if it's on, I'm watching it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. That happens to me. I get sucked into movies all the time because I'm like, that's on. I gotta watch it. But I mean, I love anything Betty White's in, but that scene where she is pretending to do like the Native American ceremony in the woods with her. And she's like, okay, sing a song from your soul. And they've got the drum and she's like dancing around. And Sandra Bullock does the from the window to the wall. Sweat dripped down my balls. And Betty White's looking at her like, okay, I guess we're doing this. Yeah. Betty White is amazing. Anything she's
so, oh gosh. Rest in peace, Betty White. She's
definitely missed. Yeah.
That's a good way to wrap this up. Rest in peace to Betty White, the legend.
Yeah.
Absolute legend.
The legend.
I mean, again, I feel like we could talk about a million more. One that is like on the peripheral, not my favorites, but I really did like the Bridget Jones Diary series.
Interesting. I
liked them.
Yeah, I had never seen them, and I always would see them like up, and I didn't know what they were about, and I never put them on. And then randomly one weekend, it was cold, and I didn't feel like doing anything, so I put them on, and I watched the first 2. I haven't seen the baby one, but
I haven't seen the baby one either.
I loved the first and second one. I thought they were great.
I think we can all agree that the overarching most romantic job for somebody to have is a writer. I feel like there's a writer in every single rom-com.
Yeah. I think because it's romanticized. I think being
Agreed.
A writer can be like a lonely, kind of isolated job. So the idea that you can fall in love with someone like, who is so isolated and I think also a lot of the writers in these movies are romance writers or some variation of that.
Agreed.
So I think like, they're writing, it's like, it's perfect. It's like very
I love
dreamy.
This was fun. I could do a whole podcast just on this.
I know. I mean, period pieces,
oh,
rom-com.
God. Let's do it. This is a good way to celebrate Galentine's Day. Or if you're sad and you don't have a Valentine, I think you're amazing and you can be your own Valentine. But also, you can listen to this and pretend you're hanging out drinking wine with us.
Exactly. And I think that's the point, is you can watch these, and Valentine's Day is a made-up thing. It's just so you buy cards and spend money on
Valentine's Day. It's more fun.
Exactly. It is more fun. And then there's no expectations.
Yes. Just watch one of these movies. Just watch
It will make you
say the
warm and fuzzy.
Well, happy Galentine's Day, Dayelle.
Happy Galentine's Day, Amanda.
Bye, guys.
Bye.